Welcome to the Black Gay History Channel. Please share this video and subscribe to this channel for more captivating content. African gay rights activists are hard at work in the motherland advocating for equal human rights for LGBTQ Africans in 2024. And in previous videos, I've covered some of the most progressive African cities and countries on the continent, particularly South Africa, by far the most progressive African country for LGBTQ rights in the continent. But I recently wondered, what are some of the countries that may be on the cusp of even greater wins for LGBT rights who are following in South Africa's progressive footsteps? It turns out there are several African countries that have in recent years made some legal and cultural progress for LGBTQ rights. Here's a quick list of 6 African countries that have recently become more progressive. Rwanda. Like many ancient African countries, Rwanda has a well-recorded history of gay and LGBTQ culture in the country, especially prior to European colonization, so it makes sense that they are one of the most progressive countries for gay rights in Africa today. The Hutus and Tutsis, two Rwandan ethnic groups that were infamously involved in the country's horrifying genocide in 1994, have a long-recorded history of gay relationships that were celebrated in their culture prior to European influence. Unlike many African countries, Rwanda never actually criminalized gay intimacy, so there was never any need to decriminalize these acts in the country. Since the dark era of the genocide in the 1990s, Rwanda has astounded the world in how it has progressed and become a much more stable country in recent years. And as I've mentioned on the channel multiple times, financial security usually makes people much less likely to care about marginalizing gay people in their communities. In Rwanda, poverty, maternal mortality, gender inequality are all on the decline, and healthcare is universal. Though Rwanda is seeing an uplifting change in life expectancy and financial gain in the country, modern LGBTQ Rwandans still feel marginalized in modern Rwandan society. Mozambique. Mozambique is world-renowned for its gorgeous jungles and savannas that attract tourists from all over the world to their distinct and unique safari. But what many may not realize is that the southeastern African nation Mozambique is also one of the more progressive countries for gay rights in Africa. I'm always surprised when I found out that any African country has had anti-discrimination laws in place for gay people in employment, and Mozambique has had this law in place since 2007. Same-sex intimacy became legal in Mozambique in 2015, and according to activists in the country, hate crimes against gay people are rare in the country but not unheard of. Organizations like Lambda Mozambique have been advocating for gay rights in the country since at least 2008, and interestingly enough, studies and surveys conducted in Mozambique in 2013 chronicled nearly 50% support for recognition of same-sex marriages and gay parenting rights in Mozambique, showing an openness for more gay legal rights in the country's future. Ivory Coast. The Ivory Coast is the most progressive country for LGBTQ rights on the western coast of Africa, though they have a way to go to acquire gay legal protections from their government. Considered by many West Africans to be the most gay-friendly country on the West African coast of the African mainland, the Ivory Coast has had a budding underground gay community, bars, and events for decades. Côte d'Ivoire is also the most progressive African country for gay francophones, or those who speak French in Africa. This is an important fact, considering that now there are more French speakers on the African continent than there are now in modern-day France itself. Gay sex has always been legal in the country, but activists have struggled to gain more protections for gay communities in recent years. For many years, Abidjan hosted a drag pageant, the Miss Wooby Beauty Pageant for gay men, gender non-conforming folks, and trans women, and this pageant was even featured in the documentary Wooby Cherie in 1998. The first popular and underground gay bar opened in Abidjan, the commercial capital of the country, in 2005, and stayed open for nearly a decade before changing locations and creating several underground gay clubs in more recent years. LGBT rights organizations like Alternative Côte d'Ivoire have been advocating for human rights advances in the country for decades. Kenya. I've covered several gay rights topics coming from Kenya that show their country's LGBTQ community's resilience and commitment to creating community for themselves despite their regressive human rights laws. Currently, Kenya is the most gay-friendly country in East Africa, and in many videos you can find in our African playlist. You can find videos about gay bars in Nairobi, Kenya's capital, churches run by gay-friendly people, and openly gay pastors, and the opening of the country's first gay health clinic, Ishtar, which opened its doors on the outskirts of Nairobi since roughly 2016. Though Kenya has no legal protections for LGBTQ people, the fact that there are several LGBTQ rights organizations fighting for change, like the Gay and Lesbian Coalition of Kenya, or MAREPA, an organization that supports LGBTQ refugees, shows that the Kenyan LGBTQ community is thriving and working. There have also been several films and documentaries like Rafiki and I Am Samuel that chronicle the lives of everyday Kenyans and the struggles they endure in order to find love and community. It's so surprising to me that though Kenya has almost no legal protections for the LGBTQ community in the country, they have such a visible and vibrant gay population on the world stage. I nearly put Kenya at number 2 on the list because of all the progressive stories I hear about gay and LGBTQ Kenyans, but Kenya still has no legal protections for LGBTQ people despite their vibrant gay culture. Botswana. Southern Africa has been much more progressive for LGBTQ rights than their northern neighbors, and Botswana, in recent years, has become a leader for equality and human rights. In 2016, the Botswana High Court ordered the government to register Botswana as a main LGBTQ organization, Lega Bibo, and in 2017, it ruled that transgender people have constitutional rights to change their legal gender. In 2019, Botswana became the first country to decriminalize gay intimate and sexual acts, creating forward movement for human rights and reversing the negative effects of colonial rule on LGBTQAI people in the country. Another interesting fact about Botswana is that, unlike many countries, men who have sex with men are allowed to donate blood. I think it's also important to highlight that though there are many homophobic leaders in African nations, there are some that do in fact stand up for equality. Former president of Botswana, Festus Mogae, spoke out against sexual and gender discrimination in 2011, saying the prejudice was impeding efforts to fight HIV in a country where 1 in 4 adults have the disease. LGBTQ people have been allowed to serve in the Botswana military since 2010, and in the same year, there were anti-discrimination policies put on the books in Botswana to ensure gay people couldn't be fired just for being gay. With all of these legal human rights for LGBTQ people, that easily makes Botswana one of the most progressive countries for our community on the continent. I hope to hear from actual Botswanans about how these laws translate into everyday life for their gay citizens. Seychelles. Now, the country of Seychelles may fly under our radar because it's a smaller African island nation that doesn't make big splashing headlines, but this nation is by far one of the biggest leaders on the African continent for LGBTQ rights. I personally know very little about Seychelles, likely because it's the smallest nation in Africa with an estimated population of only 100,000. Considering this gorgeous island nation has become a leader for LGBT rights in Africa, I wonder how gay people on the island feel with these legal protections. Seychelles is one of the most financially successful countries in Africa, but the nation's small population likely makes it difficult for community cohesion for LGBTQ people in the country. Surprisingly, anti-discrimination laws for gay people have been in place in the country since 2006, making it illegal to discriminate against gay people in employment or in public spaces like provisions of goods and services. A decade later, in 2016, Seychelles decriminalized gay intimacy. According to Wikipedia, in June 2015, 2 men, a British national and a Seychellois national, were married at the British High Commission by Lindsay Skoll, the High Commissioner of Seychelles. So even though gay marriage isn't legal, there have been exceptions to the rule. In September of this year, the Seychelles Parliament increased the penalties for those who perpetuated gay hate crimes in the country.